Joining us now is our friend Tim Verghese from Inside Nebraska. Tim, how are you this morning?
Hey, not too bad. How about y'all?
TV, how we doing, bud?
Not too bad. Can't complain.
Podge. So I gotta give a look. I wanna shout you guys out over there at Inside Nebraska. You have some very astute folks over there that have compiled a very, very, very good depth chart. Or it's more scholarship distribution. Do you know? I think it's Huskies 33.
Yeah.
Really, really, really good stuff. I'm kind of helping him trim and move some of the guys around, kind of as I see the depth chart being played out. Have you had a chance to look at that in depth?
Not super in depth, but I've taken a couple looks at it because yeah, like actually something I was planning to do here in Feb with Steve is kind of go through and I think we have an opportunity here, not opportunity, but kind of create a very, very early depth chart and then a post spring depth chart and then because it could look very different
Yeah.
at
So
3, 4 times across the year.
yeah. So I think the more I'm combing through this and kind of the more I'm watching it, you and I talk every week with my main man here, Ravi. There's this part of me, and I'm willing to entertain it. I think because right now they're roughly at about 132. Okay, you're gonna have the opportunity to get down to 105. I don't think 27. Is that 27?
Mhm.
Yeah, 27 bodies roughly is anything to really panic over. I really don't. I think they're in really good shape. But there's a couple of positions that I think we're overthinking what's going on. And I want to start with offensive line, where they've got about 22 bodies, and that's including Turner and Teddy. Okay? So you got 22 offensive linemen. For a 105 roster, do we have an idea or do you have a good idea that you think Nebraska should carry? Like, let's say if we're just starting with offensive linemen with an NFL mentality, trying to get down to a certain number, how many guys do you think the O-line should carry?
I think, I think you should be shooting for somewhere in that like 15 to 20 plus range. Like you should be in that territory. I think you should ideally be able to be three deep across the board if you want to be. I think where Nebraska's at right now, I think that's like you mentioned, kind of I kind of wonder if that's a position they address, not address, but like, when you look at the numbers and things, I feel like that's an area where they may not be as many cuts as other positions just because they want to maintain that depth over there.
Okay, so go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, that, and
15
especially,
sounds low.
yeah, I think my number is 20 internally, just in my head.
Okay.
But I also think you want to be able to run, you know, 2 or 3 deep, but also have some guys that you can either redshirt and have for development as well, right? So that's how I kind of get to 20, because Nebraska is probably going to continue to count on heavy doses of development on both sides of the line, I would think. So I would guess they'll probably skew heavier there in terms of numbers than they would other places.
For sure. And I think 15, I say 15, that's just like the lowest you could go. Like I get concerned if you drop below 15.
Okay, so should O-line I want to move on to D-line here real quick because I think for radio's sake, I do want to kind of go through the names, but I don't know if we can retain them really quick. So I'll go fast for just the offensive line. Okay, so you got the young guys, you got Hammerbeck, you got Torres, you got Marks, you got Tapu. Then in the next group, it's Bricks, Landon Davidson, Fennessy, Peters, Pyle, Tumawa. Next group is got Brandel, Gatula, Knutson, Matrachek, Segrin, Sledge. Then Evans, Kanak, Pritchett. Then the senior group is potentially Corcoran, Latofsky, and Prohaska. Okay, so you can whittle those names as you please. Now go to D-line real quick with 18. So you've got Petashak, Simpson, Terry, Hofkin, Lafotu, Murphy, Ochoa, Unwarni, Borchers, Keneally, Keona Davis, Goldman, Gabe Moore, Van Poppel, Jalen George, Linhart, Dylan Parrott, the only senior, Elijah Judy. That currently sits at 18. Are you comfortable there?
I mean, no, I wouldn't be. I mean, only I think you're comfortable with the number.
Okay.
But I think what I'm uncomfortable with is the lack of true interior bodies, high-end interior bodies, and I think that's something they're going to look to address potentially in the spring, through the spring transfer portal if they can find that reserve interior defensive tackle. My concern there is really just the interior of that line, but I like the depth there. I think on the D line specifically, especially considering what this defense is going to evolve into, where you are going to have like your edge rushers are going to be technically outside linebackers. I think you're fine at 15 to 18 defensive linemen. I don't think you need to hold 20 plus on the D line, even in a developmental setting, because I think moving forward, I think you're going to see like, hey, you have Cade, Malcolm Simpson, Tyson Terry, but then you look at the bodies they're recruiting in 26 and beyond with Phillip Simpson and some of the names in the linebacker room right now. I feel like your edge rushers are really going to come from that outside linebacker or in that outside linebacker room.
Okay. So I'm apologizing to Ravi real time for kind of hogging the next two, but I'm going to go through linebacker and DBs, and then I'll let Ravi take running backs here. So right now at linebacker, we've got this exercise, you guys listening, because you guys love TV. We love TV. So this is a good opportunity for us to kind of lay out why I don't think we should necessarily panic or maybe overstate how complex spring could be. Because I think once we go through these numbers, you'll get a sense that this is, in my opinion, I think very manageable. And TV, if you can give me pushback, please do, because I think iron sharpens iron. Okay? So let's go to linebacker here, where you have 17 bodies. The young guys, you got Jones, Merritt, and Mooberry. Next group up is you got Duda, Gradney, Wacker. Then Jacob Bauer, McGahee, Mav, Dylan Rogers, Shavers Jr. The next group, Genatone and Stenger. Your seniors, Booker III, McCullough, Watson Trent, and Javen Wright. That puts you at 17. I put an asterisk by D-line because you think there's maybe some room to tinker there. How do we feel about linebacker?
I feel like this is another room where I think you're going to see some cuts,
Okay.
Unfortunately. I just think this is a room that is a little heavy right now, and especially with, kind of I think there's also going to be some somewhat realistic conversations to be had here with some of the walk-on turn scholarship guys in this room, or that would hypothetically be turn scholarship guys in this room. I think this number, in my opinion, I think this number gets down below 15, maybe even lower. I think they get closer to 12 potentially at linebacker.
Okay, now the one that everybody's kind of panicking about, not panicking, but DB. Now there's 27. Okay. You want to carry probably no less than 20 or 21. Is that too high, too low? Let's start there.
I think 20 is perfect. I mean, because you also just from a numbers standpoint, from your base for the most part, you're playing 5 DBs. Like you need, as like of the defense, if you're allocating numbers, you need more DBs than any other position group on the defensive side of the ball.
So let me tell you why I'm not panicking over the competition in the defensive backs room. I'll give you the young guys: Turch, Vermas, and Bryson Weber. Now this red shirt group, you've got Benning, Diaforno, Guthrie, Donovan Jones, Preston Okafor, Prescott, Prude, Sanders, Tarver Jr., Evan Taylor. The next group, DeAndre Barnes, Mario Buford, Jeremiah Charles, Bly Hill, Justin Rhett, Ramir Stewart, Bryce Turner. The junior group with Kahn and Andrew Marshall. Your seniors, Branch, Buford Jr., Hartzog Jr., Singleton, and Sierra Wright. Plenty of, I wouldn't panic over that group. That's going to reveal itself in a hurry, and I don't think it's going to be that difficult.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I think those names, off the top of my head, I'm not going to name names, but like off the top of my head, you run through that group and you're like, okay, yeah, I mean, you could see like 3-4 of those guys already just off the bat, like probably aren't going to be here after the spring or into the summer. Like after this semester, those guys are probably gone. But you look at the rest of that room, and it's like, hey, they've got bodies and versatility, and like I think competition is going to be good for this room, because I think like right now the cornerback 2 question is who's going to be the guy opposite Sierra Wright, and you and I could list off like 5-6 names that could potentially win that job. That's a good thing. That's a good thing that Nebraska has that type of competition at the cornerback, the second cornerback spot. You have the versatility of a guy like Donovan Jones and a Larry Tarver, even Amari Sanders in some way. Those guys can play a little bit around the defense. Caleb can play, a couple different spots in the safety room. Where does Braylon Prude fit in? Like I kind of wonder. I kind of theorize this in the mailbag, but I kind of wonder if they take Braylon Prude and they essentially just say, "Hey, just follow Deshaun McCullough around and learn how he
as
plays."
Closer to a second level guy."
Yeah, as just like this.
I don't think that's nuts. I mean, I would definitely entertain that.
Yeah, I mean, because they're both big athletes that can play a couple different positions. Deshaun, coming out of high school and even at this point, is further ahead, but there's a lot of learning experience I think Braylon can have from just sitting behind a guy like Deshaun and learning, hey, okay, here's where I fit in Nebraska's defense. Here's what I can do. Because I think right now, Prude's not going to be, I don't think, ready to play this year. If he is, it's going to be in a rotational sense. But you look at some of the other guys in the room, like a Tarver, like a Benning, like a Amari Sanders and a Donovan Jones, like those guys might be ready to start and at least contribute in a heavy sense this next season.
As I looked at it, DB was the lead, and I mean, fool. Like we're not fooling anybody. Like I clearly know the room, but yeah. I've shifted. 3 weeks ago, I'd have been like, "Ooh, this is going to be really, really competitive," and it is. Don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be crazy in terms of trimming or revealing itself. Like I think the DB room could be fairly clean. There's 2 more, and I want Ravi to get to one. How many numbers do you think are represented in the running back room as we sit right now? Do you know off the top of your head, TV?
I don't know. If you're factoring in fullbacks, I think it's like 7 or 8 right now.
So you've got on fun.
This is a bigger number than I think people think.
Yeah, we've got 9 currently. 9.
Go through it.
So we've got Booth and Parker as your true freshmen coming in, Rowdy Bauer, Isaac Dickey, Mekhi Nelson, Trent Euler as that next group, Quentin Ives, Kenneth Williams, then Emmett Johnson is the old head in the room.
Yeah, you got no seniors in that group, but you got 9 bodies. Does that sound high?
Yeah, it's high. It's
the more people get into this, I think it's interesting
because you want to. I think like what I mean, you want to have 4 guys you feel like you could play, and then maybe 1 or 2 more.
You need. Yeah, I feel like 6 or 7 should be the room.
Do you? This is interesting. I could be talked in
because you're probably going to use.
I think you need 5 guys that can carry the ball at any point in the season.
So you figure you've got,
even if you only get 3 ready.
So you figure you've got even if you've got 6 running backs, right? You got to figure like Liebentritt and Harburg and all those types of guys, and which I didn't even see Liebentritt on the list there.
No, I didn't. We didn't count him as guy coming back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Lindenmeyer, like those guys are going to play a lot of the sort of like fullback H-back spots. So I think that tight end room is going to overlap a little bit with what would traditionally be the fullbacks in that room. So I'm talking probably 6 pure running backs. And then you figure, okay, Emmett Johnson's going to get carries, Ives, Nelson. I'm missing one that's returning or that's coming back, I think. And then Jamarion. I would say those are the 4 I would expect to be like, I could give them the ball.
Did that number catch you off guard, Tim?
Yeah, I didn't expect that high. I mean, it's weird because like that's a position that, I mean, we have Emmett Johnson. People are talking about adding another one, but look at the numbers. Like, yeah, then the numbers are.
I think so. What that led me to believe is there's a reason that they didn't bring in any backs for visits.
Right.
But let me give you another one. Did you get so? How many guys do you think are represented in the wide receiver room, Tim?
A lot.
It's a lot. It's 15 plus. I know.
It's 17. Does that seem high?
To me, it does.
Does it?
To me, it seems high.
Okay, run through them.
All right, so I've got on my guys coming in Carpenter, Mills, Mosey, Jones, which we don't know where Jones is going to ultimately play, but sure. Clark, Singleton, Smith,
Keelan, yeah.
Barney, Bell, Doss, Gilmore, Hunter, Bonner, Hausman, Mangini, Miller, and then Dane Key is the old head in the room.
I mean, you could see some cuts there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you've got – so it's kind of the same thing, TV, with the running back and the wide receiver room. And I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but you got a lot of walk-ons in both those rooms.
You're so
like you've got a lot of walk-ons, and you got 4 walk-ons out of the 9 in the running back room. You got, I believe, 5 walk-ons out of that wide receiver room. I'm not saying you got to cut all the walk-ons, but I did do the math for whatever it's worth. That if you just cut most of the walk-ons, it's 18. If you cut walk-ons that I don't think I've ever seen play, like special teams or anything, it's 18 guys. All of a sudden, that 27 is down to 9. So you're talking about 9 guys that you have to cut that you at some point thought were going to get real playing time.
That's too many. Oh, let me ask this. What do you think, TV?
Yeah, like, I mean, with the receiver room specifically, I feel like 17 feels like a lot only because I think you ultimately want to carry between 12 to 15. Like, I say a lot, but it's like you cut a few more and you're within the threshold of I think you want to hold. I think you want to hold 12 to 15.
Yeah, because we talk about this as like it's like super, like, oh my gosh. But like you kind of get down to it and it's, I mean, you don't have a ton of margin for error.
Not a whole lot, yeah. I mean,
you don't have a ton of margin for error, but you also don't have a ton of guys that you have to like make hard decisions on. Not that it's easy to cut the walk-ons, but you know what I mean. Like guys that you're like, oh, at some point I thought he could be good. Like you don't have a ton of those.
Yeah, but you have to build a whole room. So I don't want to necessarily discern between walk-ons and non-walk-ons as much as what that room needs to function at a high level.
But I mean, at some point we probably are going to make this distinction between walk-ons and non-walk-ons because like you're probably
not if everybody's represented. There's no such thing.
No, but I mean previously, right? Because you viewed those guys differently, obviously coming in.
Fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm kind of glad this is raw eye to you because I get like the authentic. This is TV in all its glory. How many bodies do you think are represented in the tight end room?
Tight end, I know is a lot. Like for what that room is probably evolving to and what it probably needs to be, and that's where like we talked about with the running backs room too. Where is the crossover at this point with those Heinrich Harburgs and
or like a Carter Nelson?
Right, exactly. Like where does he kind of fit in? Or Jeremiah Jones as well, like a guy that can play tight end, play receiver, play DB. You look in the tight end room now. I think another one like Eric Ingerson's a guy that could blow up to an offensive lineman, or does he? What does his offseason look like for him? It's a weird. I know there's too many guys in that room. I think. What is it? Is it over 10? It's not over 10, is it?
It's 9. It's Flint, Ingerson, my main man, Danny King, Connor Shutt, Echternach, Markway. I'm putting Carter Nelson in that room because it's 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. If Nelson isn't in the tight end room, then he makes 18 in the wide receiver room. Mm-hmm. Okay, so do with him what you will. Then it's L2, Luke Lindenmeyer, and H2O and Harburg. That's 9.
Yeah.
Does that seem right?
That seems high, especially for what this offense is evolving into. I think running backs and tight ends are going to get capped at 6 moving forward. I just kind of feel like you don't go above 6 in either of those rooms moving forward. I think quarterback, you run 5, maybe 6, but 6 is crazy. I feel like a quarterback. I think the tight end room is going to get some cuts or at least adjustments. Like I just don't think they're going to be necessarily considered tight ends or in that room.
Let me give you the jaw dropper. Mm-hmm. Kind of. We talk about quarterbacks and depth. How many quarterbacks do you think are represented on the roster right now? I think like what we know.
I think it's 6. I think it's right at 6.
It's 6.
Yeah.
Does that seem high?
That does seem high.
So I say all this to say, like, it seems like our fretting is misplaced.
In terms of which position groups?
Yeah. We've harped on DBs all offseason.
Yeah. It's because the number's the biggest.
I'm not sure when it comes nut cutting time that's going to be the biggest headache. if not, this is going to be highly competitive across the board.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the most competitive, like now that we're talking about it, you know what I think the most competitive room is going to end up being? Because I think there's going to be a separation between the top end and bottom end of the DB room. I think that wide receiver room. I think there's going to be some tough decisions. Like think about Demetrius Bell, a guy that like had, like during spring camp, he had like, social media by storm, like Nebraska, like, that was the name we kept hearing in the receiver room. And then you have Ja'Cory Barney and you have Hardly Gilmore now. And you look at Hardly Gilmore's film and you watch Demetrius Bell's film and you watch what Ja'Cory Barney did last year. And you look at those three guys and you're like, oh, you guys all do similar things. And, you figure Ja'Cory's the favorite to maintain a starting spot. But, Da'Keel Shorts is high on Hardly Gilmore. Demetrius Bell could come back and he's a little bigger than Barney. Is he a guy that, tends to take some snaps away? I think you're going to see some real competition. Okay, is there an established guy in the wide receiver and the DB room, or established guys you could see moving on from the program because they get jumped? Like I'm talking guys that have played multiple games, like played meaningful snaps in multiple games.
Yes.
I agree.
Yes. I could see it.
I mean, we kind of already have in some spots. You said wide receiver in which other group?
The defensive backs.
So I was kind of lumping wide receivers and tight ends together, but like we saw Borkacher move on. We don't really know if he like just looked around at the state of the room or like what exactly that was. But that's a guy that I think most people would have wanted back.
Yeah, I think Nebraska would too. But I think the thing with Bork is I think he wanted the assurance of opportunities.
Yeah.
Because he's a fringe. That's a guy that's going to show up on Sundays on a roster, and we're going to be like, oh, yeah, I could see that. And I think he wants more tape than anything. So I'm clearly Team Bork. But, Tim, isn't this fascinating? And I'm glad it's you because, like, you think things through and you process. Like, do you feel like going through this list, and, again, shout out Huskies 33, like my emphasis has changed looking at names to positions. Has yours?
Yeah, very much so. Like I think again, like I don't think the issue, like the DB room, it's just I think more than anything we freak out about the number, but I think that's all one part of the reason of the concern in that room too is like right now I don't think that like off the top you could name the guys that need to go for sure. Like you could name that in other rooms,
but it's
like,
not not an egregious number.
Yeah, not at all. That's the thing. Like
27 isn't crazy.
No, you're only a little high.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
It's like you look at it and it's like, oh my God, thank you for doing this because we get to like you can actually see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our guy.
Tim, you're Superman. Part of your beauty is you're good on the fly, man.
I appreciate y'all. This has been fun.
We appreciate you going through that exercise with us on the fly. We'll talk to you later, Tim.